Harimi, harimi, al tirai, harimi, al tirai. Imri le'arei Yehuda, hine Elokeichem. Harimi, harimi, al tirai.
All right, we're on page 318 in the bilingual edition, which is in the middle of Kuf Chavav in Rav Chaim Freelander, but Kuf Chavav is extremely long. So how are you going to find it? Good question. It's V'nimtzu Shtei Havchanos. He's in the middle of talking about other Rishon. It's Mamash in the middle. So right before he's going to start talking about Gan Eden now.
You were on the side. Adam Gan Eden.
Oh.
Yeah, right here, I got it.
Okay, there we go. V'nimtzu Shtei Havchanos sheyesh lanu lahavchin be'inyan ha'adam v'chol sha'ar habrios. There are two aspects we have to understand by man and other creations. Arishan mitzius ha'anyanim ha'muchuvanim b'mitziusam ha'mikreim perish ha'toldos ha'noladim. Welcome. Take some challenge from the. That's the other shir.
I already finished all that
From 1 month ago?
That's the other shir. The other shir.
Sorry.
I saw some Diet Coke though. I had some Diet Coke. Okay, we're starting page 318 in your books in front of you. Arishan mitzius ha'anyanim ha'muchuvanim b'mitziusam ha'mikreim perish ha'tolados ha'nolados mehavyasam v'pulasayim. The results and the things that happen when a being does an act. You should be very excited because we're going to talk about the Garden of Eden. What exactly was the Garden of Eden? We're going to get to that hopefully. Okay, v'habez, this is just an introduction. And the second, haderech shalahem, the way it operates, perish tsurasam v'tsuras puloseim. So we have beings that do acts that affect different things, and we have how they're made up. Kimashi aniyah haguf yachol aniyah gam neshama v'malach, because a body moves, and apparently in a certain way, an angel and a soul moves, but they operate in different ways. Ach zelafi darko v'zelafi darko, each according to its way. V'harei ele shtayim midos, these two aspects. Pu'ulos gedolos bepu'ulos of Yisbarach, the acts that Hashem did. Rishon kivius mashi valid bepu'ulos and Ibrahim. One is the effect that happens when creations do something. V'zeh klal kol chukas han hagasa v'sidri karniyosh zecharon. This has to do with the systems that we mentioned above. V'habez hakvios eich yolilo and Ibrahim mahim otozma. How the creations will affect these changes. V'gam lezeh yesh darim gedolam hanaosim utzrichim la'ashlamas ha'inyan hazeh. There is a great specificity and way that these systems operate. So we learned that when beings do things, it affects spiritual worlds, especially human beings. When we do something, it affects spiritual worlds. So how that works, there are many, many details. Don't think it's all simple. We have a very complicated physical world, so too we have a very complicated spiritual world, how our deeds will affect all the different spiritual worlds. And if you want to learn the details of these systems, then you need to go to the Kabbalah class, wherever that is secretly being held in Manalapan at this time. Rabbi Shtor could tell you. Now, if you remember, we discussed there are three general levels of humanity. There's humanity the way we are now. That is the lowest level. Then there's the level that man was at before he sinned with the tree of knowledge, before he ate from the tree of knowledge. And then there is the level that Adam could have reached had he not sinned by eating from the tree of knowledge. Okay? Originally, before Adam sinned, he was on a very great level. And since he was on this higher spiritual level, Adam before he sinned, that means his deeds affected the spiritual worlds and affected creation more than anything else, more than us now. For example, right, if we were to violate a mitzvah of Hashem, we would not cause all of humanity to go down a level and get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. But when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, he was kicked out from the Garden of Eden and totally transformed the nature of humanity, because Adam was on a level that was extremely different from and higher than what we're on now, and like he's going to explain. The Hashenis in the second, Bitsuraso ubitsuras ma'asav betavnis gufa mamish. So one is how it affects it, and two is the actual form that the being will take up. So since we see there was two things, Adam affected the world and the spiritual worlds differently. It was a much greater effect. And two, his form affected that. So the way Adam was, he did not look like we looked right now, and he's going to explain that. The body of Adam was so pure, it was like the angels. Until he needed to, the point was that his body was at a spiritual form that was like the angels. Then he needed a place to live that reflected that holiness. So he did not live in the world as we see it now. Hagan Eden, where was this place? The Garden of Eden. Now what's the Garden of Eden? The Garden of Eden is also where the angels dwell and the spirits, sounds like the souls of people dwell after they die. So Adam, in his physical form, lived in a place where the angels and the souls live now. So if someone wants to go looking for the Garden of Eden on earth, he's not going to find it. According to the Ramchal, the Garden of Eden exists on a different plane of existence. Okay? But it was a real place. People want to say that it was a parable, God forbid, a metaphor. It's not true. It was a real place, but it existed on a different plane of existence. So if you're thinking of going to the jungles of Africa to try to find the gates of the Garden of Eden, according to Ramchal, you're not going to find it because it was a spiritual place. And to this, the rabbis hint. When they said, in the Torah of Rabbi Meir, it said that Hashem made them a garment of light. And this was already explained a lot by the sages. That the intent in this statement, to teach us the purity and the high level of the body of Adam before he sinned. After Adam sinned, his body became coarse and physical like it is now.
So it was spiritual place at that point, right? And on this earth, right?
So it wasn't technically, it was in a different dimension, we'll say.
So
like angels,
like that exists today.
It exists, but that's where the angels are, and that's where the neshamas are.
You can't drive there. That's the point.
You can't drive there, right? It's on a different plane of existence.
Can't run there either.
Can't run there. Maybe you can run there either fast enough. He's gonna give a. We find another case of this in Jewish history. Who got there? We see an example of this in the world. Chanoch and Elijah. They died with their body. They didn't really die. Their bodies were intact. Their bodies were intact, and they kind of transformed their bodies, in a certain sense, into the level that Adam was, so they could go to this Garden of Eden. Their bodies became totally purified. And they became like the high angels. Their actions were much more refined and spiritual. So the actions of Adam were like very refined and spiritual, like the actions of Chanoch and Eliyahu today. So we're saying yes, the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, is definitely a real place. However, it exists on a different plane of existence. Adam, though, he had a physical body, but his physicality is what we call spiritual. When we say something spiritual, an angel is spiritual, so that was the level of Adam's physicality when he was physical. V'tira, and look, Gan Eden Mashahaya Hushiyah, what it was is what it is now and what it will be. Vaday Makam Dak V'Ruchani, it's a very refined spiritual place. Shesham Chanos HaRuchos Gamata, because even now the spirits dwell there. V'hatayra Heidu Al Adam Shai Sham, and the Torah says that Adam was there. V'haya Oichel V'nena Min HaPeres Hatzayim Sham, and he would eat from the fruit over there. V'amnam, so how could he eat from fruit? They have apple trees, and we all think it was an apple, but it's not so clear what the fruit was that Adam ate from.
Well,
but
in the Gemara, there's different opinions. None of them are apples.
Right, so it's not an apple, but I have trouble getting the cartoon image out of my head from when I was a kid, and the Simpsons episode where they're eating apples. Since we see now that this is a place where the souls dwell, it means the fruits that were there weren't physical fruits like we have. They were very, very refined. If you want to compare what the fruits in Gan Eden are compared to the fruits here, it's like comparing air to earth, to dust, to dirt. Dirt is a very physical thing. Air is more of a, just giving you a parable, air is more of a, less of a physical thing compared to dirt. That's where the fruits are there. And when they were eating there, it's not like we eat now. It's not such a physical act of eating. But it's a very refined body, and it was almost like he says, it was like spiritual. And their bodies were like the bodies of Elijah and Chanoch, or like we explained. This is what we explained. According to the things that had to come out from their deeds. So he says that their deeds that Adam did totally affected the world on a very profound level. So his body had to reflect that. His body is what we would call spiritual because all of the deeds that he did had a profound effect on all of the spiritual worlds and all of humanity. Okay, let's do a little more. But here, the body of Adam before he sinned was like what we call spiritual. So you can imagine what the spiritual of Adam was. If his physical, you have two parts of a being. You have the physical and spiritual. We have a physical body and we have a spiritual part. So Adam's physical body was like our spirituality. So you can imagine what his spirituality was like. You could imagine the depth of how his deeds reached. And it's enough to say what our rabbis said earlier. The angels wanted to say in front of him, Kadosh, holy. The angels were so astounded by Adam's high level, they wanted to call him holy. The angels. Then we could imagine the level. That was only the second highest level. Imagine the level that Adam would have gone to had he not sinned. He would have gone to a very high level. What was prepared for him? Roim shagufani shelo shel az hu kiruchani shel ata nachol hakish miseh shagufani shelo im haya misala hayachol lios ke'erech haruchani shel az kikena dvar misala me'ilo le'ilo. So if Adam's physical being was what we would call spiritual, that's before Adam sinned. Had he not sinned, he would have gone up a higher level. That means that his physical would have become like his spiritual then, and everything would have gone up a level, even holier. But unfortunately, Adam sinned, and we wound up where we are now. We went down a level. Okay, and the next week we'll start talking about the two trees. So we're saying it's very important. Certain people, I think, right? So according to the Ramchal, the Garden of Eden is not a physical place that you could go to. However, it is a place. That's where the angels dwell, and that's where people dwell after they pass away on a spiritual level. But Adam, even when he was alive, lived there. And similar examples to that are Chanoch and Eliyahu, who never really died, but their bodies went up to the spiritual realm with their souls. But for sure, the Ramchal is not saying that the Garden of Eden is some parable in the story of Genesis is a metaphor. The Garden of Eden is a real place with real fruits. It's just on a different spiritual plane than what we are on now.